Welcome everybody, it's Captain D. Today we're taking a look at the Any Simulations A300 Beluga ST, which stands for Special Transport, otherwise known as the Whale. Right now, I have this thing parked in a pretty strange place. Along with the airport, we have the airport Howden here. It is EGNR, and we're at the Beluga ramp station. And this is the hangar where they load everything into the front of this plane. And from the outside, as you can see here, the front of the airplane goes inside the hangar, and then they open up this big old clamshell door and load up the cargo for this massive airplane. Now I do have it in a UPS livery. This is a fictional livery. It's not real. UPS doesn't fly this plane, but it looks better than just the plain white one that comes with the airplane stock. You can go on to the Any Simulations website forums and download countless liveries as well as some other cargo for the aircraft. This is just going to be a very quick first impressions review of the airplane, and then how to start the airplane. On a future video, we'll do a flight. It'll probably come out within the next week or so. So let's get started. First of all, we have the external, very nicely done aircraft, clean textures. Very nice model. I will back it out of the hangar here so you can see the front end in just a moment after we start it. Now, I'm having some issues with better pushback. Normally you would use better pushback to get you in and out of the hangar. You wouldn't use a reverse thrust like I'm going to use, because obviously you'll jet blast the hangar here. But I'm having some issues with better pushback. Better pushback gives me a strange warning here, and I have uninstalled and reinstalled this thing.
Pushback failure. Error initializing audio messages.
And I
Please
still get this
reinstall better pushback
message. So I haven't figured that out yet. When I do get it figured out, I'll put in a supplemental for the video and show you how that works. Now, to operate the doors for this airport, it is required that you have the SAM plugin, and you go over to airport operations, and you'll see here Beluga doors and everything, and you can open and close these. And it's not an instant thing. It does take a while, and these doors will close around the aircraft. While we're waiting for the doors to close, let's go ahead and jump inside the airplane here. Alright, this is the cockpit view. It's a pretty standard Airbus A300 cockpit. You've got your McDougalls or FMCs here, and then the lower ones that handle the radios and some other things. And then this tablet is pretty much the heart and soul of everything here. You can do your panel states here, where you can go and put it at a certain state. APU running cold and dark, GPU on, ready for takeoff or ready for taxi. And then over here you have your takeoff preferences, which you would enter if you're doing a flight. Or you have your checklists. It does come with a full complement of checklists. You can also find these checklists in the manual. Has a pretty decent manual. I mean, it could be a little more detailed, but they do have a lot of information in here. I have not read the whole thing. I have only perused the manual because, hey, it's more fun to just figure it out. Alright, I think our doors have opened all the way here, so we'll go ahead and take a look outside real quick. Now one thing I do want to mention is if you are trying to use a keyboard shortcut, you have to click outside the little tablet because the keyboard is used with the tablet. Alright, the doors are still open. They have not closed. Maybe I didn't do that right. Alright, we'll see. Alright, so with the aircraft, we have the tablet here that gives us the checklists, and then we have a few other options here in the EFB. You have your ground ops, where you can do your load sheet, and that's where you pick the cargo you're gonna haul, you put in all your weights and everything that can be transferred to the FMC. You have your ground services, which gives you external power, chocks, air start unit, pushback, the loader, and the fuel truck. Alright, so we're gonna load an Airbus fuselage here. Request loader. And this takes about 5 minutes for it to load the aircraft. And then we're going to go to exits here. And here's where you'll see the main cargo door. If you activate the loader, the main cargo door automatically starts to open. You have a rear cargo door and the service hatch. And you can open and close those in that menu, or you can hit open all or close all right there. Pretty easy to use. I do have to say, the first time I watched this, it was rather strange to watch a vehicle get this close to the front end of an aircraft like that. And then it will lift up over our heads. And here we are up in that cargo bay, where we can watch this thing come in. Once the loader has reached its proper height position here, it is necessary to go back into the cockpit and once it's ready, we'll hit load. And that will put the cargo in the aircraft. And they're backing up. I think this is a really cool airplane. I am not an Airbus guy by any means. If it's not Boeing, I ain't going, used to be my motto. But I'm a sucker for that oddball weird airplane out there. And this is one of those oddball weird airplanes. I have taken it on a couple of flights. I'm not a very good pilot with it. Still a lot to get used to. I'm sure I'm not doing everything exactly right. Shout out to my buddy Skid Rock for at least getting me off the ground. As I mentioned, the plane comes with the manual, which gives you the checklist and then some expedited procedures or simplified procedures to get you going. And then if you continue to scroll down in the manual, you'll get the more detailed procedures on how to do everything as far as starting the engine and getting things ready to go. Alright, it looks like we are pretty much in position here, so let's go ahead and take a look here at the load tablet, and now we have the option to load the aircraft. So we'll hit load and then we'll go back here and watch what happens. Pretty cool animations there. Putting an airplane inside of an airplane. Aircraft has pretty good sound, both with the loading process and as well as the cockpit sounds and engine sounds, which all can also be adjusted in the settings menu of that tablet. And we're going to get ran over here. So we'll just spin the camera around. And there we go. We have a loaded Airbus fuselage. So then we go back to our tablet and we hit remove loader. And then the loader will reverse the process and remove itself from the hangar. Now you do have to set this view up manually. There are no standardized views for the cargo compartment. Alright, and as you can see, the clamshell door is also coming down. So that does close automatically. You can also open and close these in a regular parking spot or something like that and call the loader. You can do it at any airport. It doesn't have to be the Airbus airport. Alright, so we've got the door closed. Through the magic of simulation, I'm going to move the aircraft. Alright, here we are outside at the ramp start position. Those doors never closed, so I'm not sure if I didn't do that right. But when you load up the airport originally, the doors are closed and there's like a cutout of the shape of the front end of the aircraft. I'll try it one more time here and see if I can get it to work. There we go. Now they're closing. And this is an add-on airport that comes with the aircraft. You have to go to the website to download the airport. There's a couple of different versions of the airport. You find the one that works best for you. Alright, let's move back into the cockpit of the aircraft, and I'll go ahead and go through how I start the aircraft. Caveat here, this may not be the best or proper way to do it, but it works for me. If I'm doing something wrong that you want to point out, feel free to leave a comment below. I'm always looking for advice on how to do things more realistically than I do. Alright, so first thing I do is I go over to the electronic flight bag here, and I go to ground services, and I want the external power unit. Alright, now that the external power unit is selected, we'll go outside, and yep, we can see it, we can hear it, it is there. And then we'll go over to the overhead panel, and we'll see where it says external power available. There we go, the external power comes on. And then I turn on the batteries. 1, 2, and 3. And the way you make sure they're on is if you click it again and it says off. I've been told that when it comes to Airbus, black is beautiful, so you want all your buttons and things black. Then what I do is I go over here and turn on the inertial navigation systems. There are 3 of them. I have it set to instant just because I'm lazy and don't want to wait. You can make these changes in the flight bag here. Go to your settings section, and then you can change everything there. Your nose wheel steering, brake temperature reset if you get your brakes too hot, things like that. So, and then you can link your SimBrief account to this aircraft, so it will basically program the aircraft for you. I have not done it yet. I will eventually do that. One thing I do want to mention is if you make any changes here, make sure you click save or it will not keep your changes. Alright, with the external power turned on, you can either use the air start to get your bleed air pressure, or you can start the APU. For the purposes of this video, I will be starting the APU. Alright, so what you want to do here is you want to go to APU, you want to turn on your master switch. Obviously the fuel pump comes up with low pressure and then comes on. And then we'll turn on the strobe so people know we're doing something here. We'll turn on the beacon, not the strobe, my mistake. Alright, and then we will go to start the APU, and we'll look down here, and it should automatically go to the APU screen here. If it does not, the options to change this screen are right here. You just click APU and it will change for you. Alright, we have rising EGTs. It is starting. Alright, and the EGTs start to drop. That tells you that the APU has started. We are producing power. And once the APU is fully started, it leaves the APU screen. So we'll want to click on the APU generator, and then we can kick off the external power. As you can see, everything stays the same. Alright, the next thing I do is I turn on fuel pumps. And heat, things like that. Okay, that is clear. Then we go over here and we turn on the APU bleed. Green light is good. We arm the emergency light. Alright, so now the ship is running off APU power, and we have APU bleed air for pressurization, air conditioning, and things like that. So let's go ahead and start the engines. Quick look around, nobody's around. Alright. We'll go over to start A or B, according to the manual. I always pick A. And then the manual says start number 2 first. So we'll go ahead and hit start. And that says open. And we're automatically over to the engine pages here. And this will show you the engine here. As we can see, we're spooling up here on the N1. Once you get to 20% N1, you introduce fuel down here. And N1 is coming up, and the engine is starting. Now, unlike some other aircraft that I have experienced with, none of the autopilot control stuff comes on until an engine is started. Alright, now that's just telling us we have an electrical warning. Our generator 2 is off. The engine is started, but the generator is off. So we'll go back to the overhead panel here. And generator 2 is on. And the warning goes away. Alright, so the number 2 engine is started. We repeat the process for the number 1 engine. We do not have to move the starter or the ignition here. We can go ahead and click start, open, watching the gauges, looking for the 20%. And 20, and introduce fuel to the left engine. And the same process, engine spools up. And we get the same warning here for the engine 2 electrical. Also tells us that the auto throttle system is off. So we return to the overhead panel, and we turn on generator 1. And now that both engines are started on the ground, and for takeoff we go to continuous relight. Turn off the APU. We don't need it anymore. Alright. Now the engines are started. This is the master switch for the, I think, the auto throttle system. Go down here and we'll make sure we don't have any warnings here. Right, we have parking brake, TCAS standby, fuel feed main control. IRS inline APU running in continuous relight. I misspoke. We don't want continuous relight on the ground. Doesn't really matter. We'll turn the air conditioning on. That is for takeoff. Alright, now we'll take a look at the fuel here. Alright, as you can see, something a little bit different here. It only uses one pack at a time for pressurization because you're only pressurizing the cockpit of the aircraft. There are no passenger compartments, and the cargo doesn't care whether or not it's pressurized. Alright, so the engine is started in my way I do it. Like I said, if I'm doing something wrong, feel free to leave a comment. Let's move on to the next step, which would be aligning the inertial navigation system and programming the FMS. Or McDougal, whatever you want to call it. Airbus is a little different. Alright, so we have cargo loaded and everything. So it's a mix between the FMS and the electronic flight bag. We'll go to takeoff preferences. Request ATIS. Oh, we gotta put in the airport code here. Hit enter. And we'll just pick runway 4. Request ATIS. Getting ATIS. Reading ATIS. Inserting ATIS. And that gives us your wind, your outside air temperature, and your barometric pressure, or QNH. I'm not sure why you get an air here. Usually that goes away once you put in the rest of the data. Configuration is how you're going to take off with your slats 15 flap 0 or 15 15 15 20, and that's for slats and flaps. Air conditioning and thrust settings. Now I don't normally mess with any of that due to my own inexperience. Now let's say if it was raining or there was ice, you can change the condition of the runway. This is your total takeoff weight. You'd usually get this from a SimBrief flight plan, but I just put in a random number that I used last time, and then you click compute. And if you've done everything right, which I'm sure in this case I haven't, because I didn't follow the directions on SimBrief, putting in the proper data on SimBrief here. We'll go Toga and see what happens there. I do believe that that just means your brakes are going to get real hot if you have to use them. So I'm going to ignore that and move on. Now what we're going to do, once we have the information we would use for our flight, we click send data and then send to FMS, and then I go again and to send to card. Now the card is this thing down here. I've been told that the plane is piloted by 3 flight crew members, and the 3rd flight crew member or flight engineer is the one that puts in this information. Okay, so looking at the computer here, it says receive takeoff company data. We can clear that message. Initialize weights, initialize index cost. I've been told that the index cost doesn't matter on this plane. I don't know if it's properly modeled. And then nav information. Alright, so just put a random number in here. And then, as you can see, IRSs are still not aligned. So let's go ahead and at least get that far. So in order to do that, we program in the airport we're at, which is Echo Golf November Romeo, and the airport we're going to. So if we were going to fly, let's just say, we'll just put in EGLL for London here. Echo Golf Lima Lima. Once we get the departure and arrival in there, it brings up this none page. You just hit return. Alright, and that gives you your GPS latitude, longitude coordinates. Then we go over here and we click align. Gives us the GPS primary message. We go ahead and clear that. Align IRS, we did that, clear that. And then as you can see, all of our instruments and stuff come up. So the next thing we do is, if we had a flight number, we would put it in here. We'll just BLG. Puts it there. You can put whatever you want, or you can leave it blank. And then we will go to the takeoff and approach page, and we have our V speeds and approach speeds. You can pop it out also by clicking on it. Now the flight plan page, we'll start with loading the departure. So what we want to do is click on the departure airport, and then we want to click on standard instrument departures, and the Rex AM5 off of runway 4. I always click the wrong spot here. Alright, runway 4 that, and then you'll see where it says selected, and then you click insert, and that adds it into your flight plan with your altitudes and everything else. And then that goes in there, and then you just continue to put in your waypoints just like that. In an effort to save time, I'm not going to finish it because we're not actually making the flight. We'll skip over on how to load the arrival and approach. So we'll click on EGLL, which is our destination. We'll click the standard arrivals. And for this flight plan, our arrival was the HON 1H. So we will look in here. I don't see it, so we go to these arrows here. Now it's kind of backwards. You click the up arrow, and it moves the list up, showing what's down below. Click the Han 1H, and the runway we were assigned for landing is runway 27 right. And our transition would have been CHT. So that's all selected. And then insert. And you'll notice here that we have a flight plan discontinuity between the body of the flight plan and the approach. To get rid of that, we just go down here and click clear, and then click the flight plan discontinuity, and there you go. And then we go back up to our primary displays here, and we can extend the range. And our flight plan is in there. Do that. There we go. That is fixed. Now let's take a look at the ATC. We would want to be in TARA. You put in your squawk codes. It defaults to the European VFR code of 2000. But now that we've done that, all of our warnings and things are gone. Here shows our fuel and the outside air temperature. One thing I have noticed, if you do use Cytec panels, or I guess they're Logitech panels now, the knobs don't work. You cannot select your altitude with the knobs. The flap handle works, the trim wheel works, the gear handle works. But the radio knobs that I use are not working, so you have to do everything from down here. It's where you can put in your frequencies. But the flaps handles do work. So if you don't have one of those, your flaps and slats are here. You can model reverse thrust to an axis, as well as the speed brake. And that is how you start the plane and get ready for a flight. One thing I'll go through here as our last little mention of the air, just a brief overview here, is the autopilot control MCP panel. Now that everything's started, we can turn the pitch trim system on. Alright, so that's good to go. And you set your speed here, your auto throttle button here, your altitude here, altitude hold, flight level change. This is just in-op, I'm not sure what it was. Heading select, nav select. VL, I guess, is Airbus's version of vertical speed, and land is the approach button on a Boeing. Right. We have our flight director, flight path vector switches here for both the first officer. In the settings, you can sync a lot of this stuff, like the QNH settings and stuff like that, so you don't have to do it twice. As far as I know, there's no smart co-pilot or shared cockpit ability for this aircraft as of yet. I am hoping that somebody smarter than me will create such a thing, because this would be pretty fun to fly as a 2-person crew. And then that is pretty much it for my basic overview of loading cargo onto the airplane and how to start the engines and program the FMC.